Okay, so we're live. I'll do some editing and go from there.
Sure.
My brothers, my men, my dudes, thank you for joining me for another episode of The Inside Approach. My name is Jared Luke, and this podcast exists for one reason. It's to help men evolve naturally. I feel as men, we have been misguided for a very long time, and our identities of men have become confusing. So, throughout our episodes, we will be diving into topics and attributes that will guide us back to our design. And my hope is that we can help you discover your individual role and purpose. I would like to welcome our guest, Andrea Gebhardt, to today's podcast. Andrea is a leadership mentor, speaker, entrepreneur, and host of the Brewing Success podcast, where she teaches timeless principles around mindset, resilience, leadership, and personal growth. With a background in education and nearly 2 decades of leadership experience, Andrea is known for her ability to blend powerful insight, relatable storytelling, and practical strategies that help people rise into the next level of their lives in leadership. As a business leader, mentor, and mom, Andrea is deeply passionate about helping others develop the grit, resilience, and self-belief necessary to overcome challenges, navigate change, and create meaningful success. Her work focuses on empowering people to lead themselves well first, understanding that true growth is built through consistency, courage, adaptability, and the willingness to keep showing up even when life gets hard. Through her trainings, podcast, mentorship communities, and speaking engagements, Andrea inspires audiences to embrace discomfort as part of the growth process and to see grit not simply as perseverance, but as the decision to become who you were created to be. And if I may add, she, Andrea is one of my most favorite people in the entire world and someone that I deeply respect. She has been a true mentor in my life and has played a huge role in helping me start this podcast. So, Andrew, I will be forever grateful for the impact you have had on me. So, Andrew, thank you so much for being on the show. It's an honor.
It's an honor to be here. I'm sitting here both really excited to be a guest and also at the same time so proud of you for, taking something I know that you've been wanting to do and making it real, bringing it to the world. So, congratulations.
Thank you. So we've been going through this process of knowing each other for what, 4 years, 4 years, something like that. I
At
think three
least,
years.
at least, yeah.
Right. So it's been, being mentored by you and to be able to, just confide in you and to share things with you. I mean, we met at a conference, right? We met at a convention.
Hmm.
You were one of the keynote speakers there, and I just remember just being blown away. I'm like, wow, and I just was like, I need to shake hands with this woman. And so we met after the conference. There was a breakout dinner that we all had, and I remember standing in line for like 2 hours because your paparazzi was just crawling all over you.
Whatever.
Okay, it wasn't 2 hours, but I just remember walking up and just shaking your hand and thanking you, and just how genuine you were even then. Your presence on stage is profound, but you're the same person in person. You're not just a person on the stage. I mean, you're definitely more real person to person, but I'm just kidding. You're consistent, with who you are on stage and who you are in person. And I just really appreciate what that has done for me in my life and the role that you've done. And so I was really interested in just like, all right, who is this lady? What does she have to offer? And then your mentor program, your brewing success. I want you to talk a little bit more about the Brewing Success podcast and the mentorship program really quick, but that's where I've really been able to just learn from you and everything you have gone through in life and just your role. So I don't want to steal too much. So why don't you tell us a little more about that and whatever I left out?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I remember that conference. I remember you were also on stage that weekend and sharing a little bit of your story. And sometimes when people are up there and they're sharing their stories and they're giving their testimony in regards to their business or their success or their overcomings, you hear them, but it's only so often that you actually connect with them. And there was something about the way that you told the story and the way that you shared that there was just like a connection, like, wow, this guy is the real deal. I love that he's being so vulnerable coming from a place of talking about some of the hardships and failures. And I just really respected that from the get-go. So getting to meet you in person, even though you had to wait in line for 2 hours, I'm just kidding, really was a great pleasure. And just the friendship that has forged ever since. And then the relationship that we have now, friendship and mentor to mentee. And again, I'm just so proud that we're here. It's real, it's live, like
Right.
amazing.
We're wearing matching
Um,
shirts and everything.
Matching shirts and everything. You're even wearing the same size shirt as me, you know?
The schmedium, okay?
Medium. Yes.
Schmedium.
Yes. Looks good on you, brother. No, but I think the really powerful thing about a podcast and the reason why I wanted to start one is your influence can only be where you are in a lot of ways. And so when I was a teacher, my influence is in the classroom. When I became an administrator, my influence was to the greater, good of the school with our teachers and our staff. And then I got into, becoming an entrepreneur, and my influence was in hotel conference centers or living rooms or big stages and Zoom screens, right? That it's kind of like where influence stopped. And I thought to myself, like, with as much as I'm passionate about and as much as I want to teach, which is my heart, like I love to teach people. I mean, that's probably why I became an educator from the get-go. I really love the idea of imparting knowledge, watching people grab a hold of what resonates with them, taking that knowledge, applying it, allowing it to take root in their life and create change and create progress and create growth. Like that to me is so incredibly rewarding. But how can I expand the influence? And there are a couple people along the way who are like, you should have a podcast. You could be teaching this on a podcast. And I was like, podcasting's for famous people. Podcasting's for big time, stage talkers, authors. In my mind, podcasts were for like the John Maxwells and the Brendan Burchards of the world. And then I started seeing different people kind of come along with podcasts. And I thought, well, gosh, if she can do it, I can do it. And I just had this really incredible concept that I created called the ABCs of Leadership, where I walk people through a different letter in the alphabet, which is a play on what I used to do, my background, and each letter representing an attribute or characteristic or a necessary quality of leadership, and just really speaking to that, teaching that, expanding that. And I leveraged what I had created to launch the podcast, and it's been a tremendous success and honestly so much fun. And that spurred into people being like, gosh, I wish I could like just be in the room with you and receive all this on a regular basis and more structured concept. Like, do you have any mentorship programs? And it was just like ding, ding, ding. If there's a need, then I should really work to try to figure out how to fill that. And so I created the Brewing Success mentorship community, and it's weekly leadership trainings, and it's incredible. I mean, you've been a part of it for the last couple of years. It really is a phenomenal place. It's not just something that you sit back and you like listen to the information. It is literally um, yeah, I don't know. Sometimes, you just sit there and you feel like, gosh, like, how did she know I needed this today? This is exactly like that one missing piece of the puzzle in terms of my thought process or actions I need to take in order to make progress. And it's being delivered on a weekly basis. So we're just constantly chiseling away at all the things to help you become the greatest version of yourself. So that's what that's all about.
Love it. Love it. And I feel bad for everybody else, on that podcast or in that leadership room because I mean, you are talking just to me and they just have to listen and just take it. So, yeah, very self-reflective every single time. I mean, I'm always taking notes. I mean, there's always great references. Your quotes are freaking awesome. Your book references are freaking awesome. I mean, it's just it's life-changing. I mean, all my notebooks at my office, my other office, but it's been a huge asset and
Thank you.
I mean, it came in one of the darkest days of my lives too. I mean, it really pulled me out of a dark place, and it still is pulling me out of the dark places. I mean, there's a lot of dark corners in my life that I'm still trying to uncover in order to heal and grow as a leader, as a person, as a father. And so this brewing success isn't just like financial. You want brewing success just in leadership, helping people just evolve as people and just being successful as a human being. And that's what I really love it. There's so many different applications that you can take from it
Yeah.
just to be able to grow. So I really appreciate this again, the strength and that you've been and just in my journey, of healing, of growth and leadership, and it's just been phenomenal. So, guys, this is why we're having her on the call today. I mean, obviously, we're going to be interviewing a lot more men throughout this podcast, but this woman is a very significant player in my life and has helped me to evolve to become the man that I am today. And that I'm going to continue to use her as a mentor because she's just phenomenal. So I definitely want you to reach out to her, follow her on Instagram. We'll do some shout outs at the end of the podcast to be able to let them know how people can find you, Brewing Success, all that fun stuff. But there is, yes, we need male role models, but there's also a lot of female role models that we can have in our lives that help us. And so we're going to be talking today about grit. If you can see already, she talked about the ABCs in her things, and that's kind of what I ripped off from her, guys. Is that when she started showing me that line of her podcast and what she was doing with the Brewing Success, I was like, that resonated with me. I was like, I can do that. And so when we first started the podcast, it was the inside approach, the ABCs of becoming more, is how we got started. And so we are talking about letter G today with grit, but I have probably heard Andrea talk about grit probably three, four times in the amount of time that we've known each other in these last 3 years. And every time I can't believe I'm taking more notes. It's just you take this word that I'm like, yep, gotta have grit to just an hour-long presentation. So I feel like I could just say, the mic's yours and just mute myself out because you've delivered it so phenomenally every single time that I think it's really important for us to hear, especially as men. Because well, let me ask you this. Like, what would you say, what does grit mean to you? I mean, do you have a definition of what grit means to you?
For me, grit is a combination of, choice and perseverance. Um, a lot of people think that grit is just like the ability to just push through. And if you hear what I just said, they think it's an ability. And grit isn't an ability. An ability is something that you're born with. An ability is a natural ingrown talent, if you will. However, grit is a skill. It is something that we can develop. It is something we can strengthen. It is something we can really procure to like a really high level. But it's not until like any aspect of growth that we have awareness around the topic and the subject, and then we have the ability to reflect where we are in relation to that, and then make the choices that are in pursuit of becoming a grittier person. Yes, grit is all about perseverance. Grit is all about sticking things through, but you can't persevere and you can't have that stickiness factor if you're not making the decisions that are going to allow you to do that. So that's why I call it like it's a choice and it's about perseverance.
Because I mean, it's really easy for us just to persevere and just like struggle through it and just like, oh, I got to go through this in order to become something else or get to the other side versus making it a choice. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you think about someone who is gritty, like what do you imagine? You imagine someone who like doesn't stop. You imagine somebody who persists no matter what. You see someone who really works to overcome every challenge. They're gritty. They have just been like, man, knocked down over and over and over, but they keep getting back up. They keep getting back up. It kind of reminds me of that viral video clip that went around of the girls' soccer team where the one girl kept falling down, but kept getting up and kept advancing the ball. Like it was crazy because she fell like
Mm.
5 or 6 different times. And then she just kept getting up, get her leg out there, like whatever it took to advance the ball, to advance the ball, to advance the ball, to eventually, I think, scoring the game-winning goal. And anyone else would have fell down and rolled over, fell down and took their time getting back up. Like that to me is the definition of a gritty person, where no matter you are you've made a decision ahead of time that no matter what comes your way, no matter how hard things get, no matter how difficult things become, no matter what, you are going to do whatever it takes to continue on the path. That to me is the essence of grit. That's what, when you see a gritty person, that's what we see. And then we think, oh, they're just like naturally gritty. No, they literally have decided that that's how they're going to be. They're going to persevere no matter what. And I think that if there was more teaching around this, and on the topic of grit, like where I really learned about it at a high level was Angela Duckworth's book. I was on a flight and I think I even picked the book up at an airport. Saw it, it looked interesting to me. Picked it up, read it, and if you guys travel or fly, I will tell you, take books, make the airplane your skyway, like your education in the sky. Make it your, your sky classroom because it's just a great place to shut it all down and just like be really invested. But I remember just really reading this book and having such a different understanding of what grit was and realizing to myself, even at that point, I think it was in 2018 when I read it, that's how profound it was. Like I remember when I read that book and the shift that it made for me. I wish I would have known this sooner so I could have taught it to my students. I wish I could have known this sooner so it could have been part of like my teacher development practice for our teachers in staff because my gosh, if people just had access to this information and understood that being gritty is something we can choose and develop over time, like how empowering is that? Like it's incredible. So I think grit is an amazing skill to develop.
Skill. Yeah, and I love that you're saying the empowerment that comes with it. I mean, each skill that we develop, the more empowerment more empowered we become over our lives.
Yep.
And so we're all going to go experience life. We're going to experience some pain. We're going to experience some difficulty. We're going to experience failure. But a lot of us try to hide from that stuff. So we're kind of robbing ourselves from that opportunity to be a little more gritty and to be a little more tough. And so what would when people, I mean, you were talking about grit. It's going to come from some discipline, some consistency, what about purpose? I mean, do you think purpose plays into grit?
I think purpose does because I think that in order for you to want to persevere in anything, to want to stick anything through, there has to be there has to be a purpose. That's kind of like the anchoring factor of it, right? So when I think about people who are gritty, like my aunt and uncle just celebrated their 69th wedding anniversary
Awesome.
today. That is
Awesome.
gritty.
Yeah.
That is gritty. Like but the purpose behind that was to create a long lasting, loving relationship for as long as possible. And here we are. So, the purpose, the future ideal of being married for almost 70 years is what I feel allowed them or made room for them to develop grit. Now, if I were to go to my auntie today and be like, "Oh, you're so gritty because you stayed married for 69 years," she wouldn't probably make the connection. But I think you guys see and understand how that connection can be really made for you. Sometimes the reason why we struggle to persevere, the reason why we duck out when things get hard, the reason why we hide from the adversities or sometimes don't even take action because we're afraid of failure is that our purpose isn't like strong enough. What we're working toward, we don't believe it enough. Who we're wanting to become, we haven't bought into enough. Therefore, it's easy for us to just kind of like look the other way on our dreams, on our purpose, on our goals, on our everything because we're not fully sold out to it yet.
Guilty as charged for sure. I mean, when did I mention this podcast to you?
Like a year,
Like, what's
year
that?
and a half ago.
Year and a half ago, but it was like on my brain for like ever. So it's like I didn't have enough grit at the time to persevere. And so it's been able to go through some more life challenges and more things to have to get myself to fall down to get back up to do something that's a little uncomfortable, but to be able to put myself, to give myself a little more empowerment through it versus being scared. Because I mean, we all get scared. We don't want to fail, but at the same time, it's through those failures that we're able to make ourselves a little bit stronger. And it is a matter of getting back up. And I tell my boys all the time, it's like, I don't care how many times you see dad fall down, you're always going to see him get back up again. And I think that's the
Absolutely.
biggest lesson that we need to do as people, but at the same time, we're talking about men. If we're talking about men here as far as fathers and husbands and leaders in the community, what would you say from a woman's perspective? What does a man with with true grit look like in like relationships, leadership, and everyday life?
I think that I think that men, because they are taught by their families, by other men in their families, by society, by their communities, they've kind of inherited this like natural gritty nature because you are told things your whole life, like suck it up, get over it, get on with it. Da, 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 da. There's no room for failure. There's no room for emotion. There's no room for all these things. So I feel like there's almost a little bit more like guys are supposed to be gritty. They're not supposed to give up. They're like, right. So there's this like this ideal. So there's this a little bit more of like a natural essence of being gritty, right? I don't know. When if you were to ask probably like a kid, like, what does a gritty guy look like? They're going to think of like the brawny guy from the paper towels, like the lumberjack, like, the rustic, brawly, kind of like guy. That's what gritty would seem like. And the reason why we can imagine gritty as looking like that is because it's the epitome of like masculine, right? And masculinity. And so, what I think real grit looks like in a man, in a male leader, in his relationships, community, whatever it may be, is a man who is working and in motion toward a greater purpose. So who is also open enough to discuss and talk about the adversity, the overcoming, the challenges, the hard part, and not hiding that and not masking that, because I think the more of that that we do, the more that we talk about our failures, the more that we talk about the obstacles, the more that we talk about the process of becoming who we need to become in order to get over some of these things, that's what naturally reveals grit within a person, but also at the same time teaches other people how to be gritty. Like there, it sets the example. I never, when I see people who are successful in life, I don't want to hear about all your successes. I want to hear about the hardest thing you had to overcome. I want to hear about the setback that almost took you out. I want to hear about the thing that made you question everything about the direction you were going and how you had to start thinking differently, showing up differently, acting differently in order to get on the other side of it. That, the roundabout, the detour, the climb, that's what grit is. Shying away, holding back, that's the complete opposite.
No, I agree with you. It's we're living in this day of age where everybody kind of looks at the end result. And they're like, "Oh, I want that. I want that lifestyle. I want that whatever, that shiny object, but it's like, all right, what was the process to go through to get to that point? What was the grit steps necessary in order to accomplish that?" And so love that. And I think, as men, we tend to isolate, and try to withhold these experiences and these vulnerable moments where we have to kind of lower our force field down or our walls down in order to like, hey, I struggle with this true, and this is what I had to do go through it. But you know what? I had to put a band-aid on it. Oh, I had to get a cast for it. Whatever it might be, whatever situation is, it's important for men to not only just, we don't need to get up and put some dirt on it. It's like, all right, let's learn from the experience, but then let's turn around and teach men what we went through in order to get that. And that's exactly what this podcast is all about. So I appreciate you sharing that. Um, where have you seen men get that toughness confused, tough versus grit?
That's a great question. I think that where maybe some of that confusion happens is not giving the self permission to feel
Mm,
along the way.
mm. Have you seen guys are in their head a lot?
Oh, yeah. Well, and they're just not like open
Yeah,
about their feelings. They're not
yeah.
open about their emotions. It's okay to say things that are hard. Things are hard. It's okay to say things suck. It's okay to say that things are not going as planned or like you wanted them to. And so I think like there's that toughness, right? Of like trying to emotionally keep it all together and keep this like image while you're trying to be gritty. But you have to, like I talked about before, you have to at the same time recognize those situations and those moments, because I think that it helps with that ability to stick things through and follow things through, because we know that the pain is temporary, the heart is temporary. We know that we're going to get on the other side of it. We know that we only have, so much more to go, and then it's done, it's over. Whatever that looks like. And so I just think it's that, I don't know if I'd call it confusion, but I think I might call it like a disconnect.
Okay. No, that's totally fair. Totally fair.
Yeah.
I like that. I mean, I would, again, just growing up, just child of the 80s, right? Child 80s and 90s, it's just like, just be tough, don't cry, don't process those emotions, so it's a matter of like, all right, let's be a little more vulnerable, but let's be in a position where we can, just teach each other, and it's be able to grow. So I love what you're saying here, as far as that disconnect. We need to reconnect what's up here and all this programming that we've had, from our youth and try to get that connection with emotion and that heart. So I love that.
Yeah, and I think modeling that too for our families. I mean, I have two boys. My oldest is about to be 20, my youngest son, I have four altogether. He's about to be 17. and they both process things in different ways. And, when you see your kid working through something and it gets hard and they're facing adversity, to encourage like the perseverance, stick it through. The reward on the other side is going to be great. Like just to encourage that process of it, because I think we've created this really interesting, like soft parenting era where like, I know
Mm,
if it's hard, you don't have to. Like, we want to like, no, we want to encourage them. We want to
right.
help develop that skill set, and have those conversations. I was just working with my son on a project for school last night, and he's like, I hate this class. It sucks. And I'm like, I know I hated this class when I was your age too, and it absolutely does suck. And there's going to be a lot of things in life that super suck that you have to do. So we just have to persist, get it done, get through it, because the greater purpose here obviously is get through high school, blah, 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 and move on. So it's just also like that teaching and that modeling. And I think when I think about grit, and it's one of those things, you either are gritty or you're not. And when you think about what grit means, the ability to persevere, the ability to see things through to the end, the ability to finish, I am not okay with being the opposite,
Mm,
not seeing things through, not persevering until, giving up and quitting. There's no gray area here is what I should say. It's black and
right, right,
white.
right, right, right.
Like the t-shirts, they're black
Like
and
the
white.
t-shirts.
Grit is black and white. You either are gritty or you're not. And
No,
again,
perfect.
that's something we can learn about. And in Angela's book, she actually has this grit assessment that you can take, and she shows you like the grit scale. So it will show you on the scale where you are based on your behaviors, where you are in grit. And when you look at that and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm only a level 3. How do I need to start showing up in this world to develop that grittiness level? Because the grittier you are, the more successful you're going to be in everything.
No,
Everything.
love that.
I always say if you're not gritty, you're really shitty. So there it is.
There's a good quote. There's one I'm going to write down right there.
Ah,
Well, I mean, if we don't have I mean, grit, you're saying it is a decision. If we don't have our purpose in alignment, the distractions are going to come, the failures are going to come, and we have a choice. We either get back up and have that resilience, that perseverance by choice, or we shut down. And that's the biggest thing that I'm afraid of is in my life, I've seen it numerous times. Like when things get hard, how many times I shut down and what I default to, to be able to distract myself from what I should do. Because would you agree there's a lot of distractions in the world today?
yeah, absolutely. And think about
Right.
this
What are
too.
some
Yeah.
distractions you think people are facing? What do you think men are facing in your leadership training? What do you think are some distractions men have been are being shut down by or distracted by?
Daily trips to the restroom.
Everybody has to go daily.
Yeah, but guys, for whatever reason, spend 3 times as amount time in the
I knew
bathroom.
what you
Like
meant.
yeah, I mean, probably an hour and a half of every
Okay.
man's day is wasted. I will say
Okay.
that right now. No offense, big offense. If you're offended, you should probably reassess your bathroom situation. Um, but no, honestly, I think that distractions are things like sports. I feel like distractions are things like social media, um, other things that you can find on the internet that are probably not the best activities to engage in. I think that drinking is a big distraction. I think that, I think that's all. I think those are some of the biggest distractions that guys kind of deal with on the daily. Now, for those of the dads that are out there, they're like kind of single dads raising families. Obviously, I don't want to call your kids a distraction, but as much as they enhance your lives, sometimes just the schedules can kind of like make other things really difficult and hard. But one of the things that we always have to come back to is, you talked about when something gets hard, you kind of like shut down. And we have to start to reframe our thinking and rewire how we think about things, because what should be more exciting to you is who you grow into on the other side of that obstacle. Because if you continue to stay behind it and you continue to shy away, you're going to stay the exact same person, which means that when the storms come, which they inevitably will, when the boulders come, which they inevitably will, you are going to be the same person who hides out, ducks down, minimizes, and never makes any progress. And again, if you were to look forward to your 80-year-old self, would you be pleased with staying the same? Or would you be like, I cannot believe I continue to just duck every hard thing, every hardship, every obstacle, every challenge, turned my back to it. And as a result of that, never gave myself the opportunity to grow into who I'm supposed to be. It gets shameful almost. Like it should be
Hmm.
when an obstacle comes, when adversity arises, it should be like, okay, all right, let's go. Kind of like when guys are in the cars in high school playing chicken. All right, come on, let's go head on. When you're out there hunting, shooting buffaloes or whatever you shoot, and then he eats bison out of Tupperware containers. Everybody needs to know this. It feels misaligned. I'm
It's
outing
portion
you here.
control. It's portion control.
So, but I mean, it's that same idea,
Yeah.
of just like getting out there and hitting it and facing it head on with the excitement of like, I can't wait to see what I learn, who I become, how much better I am because of this. And understanding that, like, the coolest thing about developing your own level of grit is that you're giving yourself multiple opportunities to refine and sharpen. And that's incredible to me.
I agree. It's interesting the image, you start talking about the bison. I had this image, I mean, is think about when we are faced with a challenge, we shut down, right? We shut down. If we get our head down, if we're putting our head down, we falling down. If we have our head up, we're going to stay up. And so I started thinking about this image of this bison putting its head down, but its eyes looking dead straight. So there's a difference between again, the mindset. I just had this image of this bison just staring at me going like, "Let's go.
Right.
You want a piece of this? Come and get it." And
Yeah.
so making that decision that, we're just going to go right after that bison and just we're going to go kill it. We're going to eat it. We're going to destroy it.
Well, and imagine
But
that bison being the future version of yourself.
yeah, no,
Over
very
there on
much
the
so.
other side of the line, like, come on,
Yeah,
let's go.
yeah,
Waiting, waiting, waiting for you to stop quitting, waiting for you to stop hiding, waiting for you to stop masking all of your stuff, waiting for you to drop this and drop that so you can finally come and be one with the person that you're supposed to become. Like, imagine your future self, head down,
right.
eyes up, like, bro,
Let's
let's go.
go.
Yeah.
Well, they say buffalo or bison, they run towards the storm while cows run away from the storm, right? Or something like
Yeah.
that. There's that old story.
Don't be a
Um,
cow. There's our next quote, guys. Don't be a
what's
cow.
that? Don't be a cow. I'm gonna make a shirt for that.
And
Don't
everybody
be
be
a
like, boo instead of moo.
Move the other direction.
Can you tell I taught 12-year-olds for a good portion of my life?
Yes, in our conversations, I can absolutely. We won't go into those conversations right now, though. No, I'm
No.
just kidding. So what would you say some like daily habits? What are some habits that men can do daily, in order to start building that grit? What are some action steps?
The first thing that comes to mind is just be a man of your word. If you
Some
say
integrity on that.
something,
Okay.
if you say it, do it. If you say it, do it. Um, I think that's one of the most important aspects because I think until you become a person of your word, it's going to be really difficult to be gritty, to have that stickiness, to follow and see things through. So that would be my number one, be a person of your word. And if you don't
Because I
mean
mean,
it,
if you
then
get
don't.
that daily practice, the storms come, it's already there. It's already a muscle that's been, exercised enough to be consistent.
Yeah, and well, and too many times I think we're so flippant with our words anyway. Like, oh yeah, I'll
Hmm.
do this or I'll do that or da da da. And then time comes and then you're like, oh, I just didn't have time or oh, I know I said I was gonna do that on Friday, but maybe next weekend. No, like if you can't even be a person of your word to yourself, to your spouse, to your families, to your friends, like how can you be a person of your word to the future version?
100%.
Yeah.
No, love that. Love that. Okay, so great first step. What would you say another step is? Let's talk some more steps. What are some other steps?
In terms of becoming more gritty,
Hmm?
I think the next best action for men specifically to take is to get really honest with themselves about the experience that they're currently living and they're currently in.
Love it.
Like, knowing where you're going, knowing why it matters, and knowing why the things that you're doing every single day are contributing to what it is that you're working toward. Because when you can add value to the actions, it reinforces the purpose, but then it creates less of an exit route for yourself when it starts to get a little bit hard or tricky.
Love that. Do you remember when we first met one of the daily practices I was doing? And I was posting
Yes,
every day
when you're doing the positivity stuff in the mirror.
in the mirror,
Mhm.
right? Doing that mirror work. I mean, when you're saying take some time to actually reflect on where you're at right now, the position you are, doing mirror work, my friends, my brothers, truly powerful. When you're looking in the mirror and staring yourself in the eyes, it's like they say the eyes are the the windows of the soul. It's like it's very awkward. I mean, as I can stare when somebody's talking to me, I can stare at their eyes all the time, right? It's really easy to do because it's like, all right, I'm engaged in that. But when you're doing it to yourself, it becomes very awkward. But doing that self-reflection is huge. Really, just kind of take a peek of where you're at, take a snapshot of where you're at to be able to go, okay, what am I doing? What am I being distracted with? And what is the purpose that I feel I've been put here to do, or what is the mission that I need to be on in order to become the person I was supposed to be here in this life? So,
Yeah, and I think too, like, a lot of times when we're doing self-reflection and self-assessment, sometimes the best, because we're always going to see ourselves in a higher place. We're always going to give ourselves way more credit than we deserve, right? If somebody were to come to you and be like, "How gritty are you?" You'd be like, "Oh, I'm gritty." Because that was just what would you be, right? You're not going to be like, "Well, I kind of like I'm awful in that department."
I'm a
No, you're always
two.
gonna, yeah, you're always gonna like tell yourself. So that's where it's like, go to the people who like matter the most in your life. Just like, I'm doing work in this area. How it based on our interactions, where would you say I am on this level? To your wife. Imagine if you went to your wife, you're like, am I a man of my word? Do I do what I say and say what I do? And do I follow through and get things done and knock it out? And she's going to tell you, no, I've been asking you to put this container up in the garage for the last 3 months. That's where it starts. That's where we start to have that self-assessment. Oh my gosh. And then we realize, and then it moves into a place of, when I say I'm going to do something, I actually do it. And then that just starts to spur a little bit of that momentum to work on all those other aspects of grit, being in, you know, pursuit of something through the point of completion. And it's kind of like, I always liken it to, you can always tell about a person's level of grit by who they are in the gym. And I
Okay.
know you'll love this analogy, because when you're with a group of friends, imagine you're with a group, 3 or 4 bros, you're all at the gym, you're taking turns
Guys.
on, bros, guys, you're taking turns, lifting, powerlifting, doing whatever guys do. It's very different from what girls do in gyms. We just talk a lot. And we're working our mandible, our like jaw muscles and such. Um, but no, but you're there, and like, because you're with the guys and you're doing the reps, you're more likely to go harder, lift heavier, not because it's what you want to do, it's because you want perception. You want them to think you're strong, you want them to see you max out, you want all those things. Now you go to the gym by yourself and it's just you, and you set a goal of doing 20 reps with whatever set weight. Where is your mind at 15?
Hmm.
Well, I increase the weight so I don't really have to go to 20. Well, I did this yesterday, so I really don't have to push that hard today. Nobody's watching, nobody's looking, so I'm just going to set this back down. When it starts to burn, when it starts to hurt, when it feels like your elbows are going to explode, you know what I'm talking about? That, who you are in those moments, is where your true grit level is. So, are you the person who is more than likely to go do one more rep because you know it's going to take you one step closer? Or are you the person to fizzle out, fade out, and set it down just because you got uncomfortable? It's the best
So
way.
grit and integrity, hand in hand,
100%.
hand in
100%.
hand. Okay.
We could make a new word, gritegrity.
Grittegrity.
Integrate grit. Gritegrity. I like it.
Grittegrity. All right.
Yeah.
You patent that
Yeah.
one. We'll make that a shirt too. We could have lots of
Perfect.
shirts made.
I
I
know.
gotta figure out how to work this cricket
Get a
thing though.
merch website already. Gee.
Just all these coin words. It'd be fantastic.
Mhm.
I mean, obviously, everybody struggles in different parts, throughout their lives. And through that struggle, I mean, speaking from experience in my life, it's like you get this grit, and then all of a sudden that discouragement comes, but then you just find yourself getting tired. We get physically and mentally and emotionally tired sometimes. Um, how do you pull, how do you think is the best way to pull yourself out of that giving up or that oh, what does Brandon Burchard call it? The ruts or whatever they're called. He talked about those things at Growth Day one time. What are some steps to get out of these ruts to say, like, I want this grit, but man, I just don't know if I can, or if I'm just so tired. There's been a few steps that you've talked about, but just what about the emotional part of it? What are some emotional things that, steps that we can take?
I think number one is rest.
Okay.
I think rest is so important. And I think for such a long time in hustle culture, rest was attributed to like weakness.
Mm.
Rest was for the weak. I'll sleep when I'm dead. Go, 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 right? I'm guilty of it. I used to live, the 4 hour sleep nights, trying to chase the 4 hour work week. And it's just something but rest is a part of success. And I think more people need to understand that because it's only when you don't allow yourself that time to put it down, go partake in the things that bring you joy, go separate yourself for a bit from whatever the workload or the task is at hand, that's when you become burnout and you become tired. It's not I feel like burnout isn't like a pursuit problem. It's an inability to acknowledge what you need. And again, that comes from so like not addressing emotions, not addressing like being real with yourself about the experience. Because if you're not the best of yourself, you're never going to be able to give the best to what it is that you're working on anyway. And that's where the rut develops, right? Because that's when we start spinning circles. That's when we can't figure it out. That's when we're not making headway because we're not paying attention. So I think rest is the first way. And then the second thing is to revisit. And this is more of like a strategy because revisit your heart, revisit your mind in a sense of what about this goal? What about this thing that I'm working toward matters to me? Why does it matter? Why is it important? Because sometimes things change, and you know what? That's okay. I think sometimes dudes get so caught up on saying they're going to like accomplish something, and then they like push themselves to chase it and chase it and chase it. And who they are as a human when they get to that point, that company they started, that thing that they were working toward, that product they developed, that whatever, they don't even recognize who that person is.
Mm.
And the dream no longer fits the person, and the person no longer fits the dream. So I feel like we have to rest and we have to revisit and make sure that if we're going to pursue at all costs, if we're going to persist until, if we're going to apply high levels of grit to anything that we do, we want to make sure that it's still something that matters to us. It's still as important because, sometimes there's going to be like these little diversions that we take. And that's okay too, because that slight diversion might be the road that you're actually supposed to be on. You're only supposed to come this far. Then something was supposed to take place that made you shift what you were thinking, your priorities. And now you go off over here. And instead of having a gigantic, successful podcast, you've written a number one New York Times bestseller. So I think resting and revisiting are two of the things that you can do to really work to overcome some of those ruts that we face. I mean, at the end of the day, I've always said that a rut, when you find yourself in a rut, stuck, not making any headway, spinning your wheels, digging in deep, right? There's always I say that rut stands for a really ugly truth.
Mm.
There's a really ugly truth behind that. And it's that you're not actually as consistent as you portray yourself to be. You're not actually as disciplined and determined as you say that you are. There might be some misalignment between your words and your actions. There's an incongruency and an inconsistency somewhere, and it has to do with you. And until you fix that really ugly truth, you're always going to find yourself backsliding into that same spot, always. And for anyone who ever, you know, it's like you gotta, like when you're talking about health and wellness, people always want to put a band-aid on it.
Right.
I call that AI these days. That's the band-aid.
Sure.
I didn't learn the skill, so I'm just going to utilize AI. I don't understand how this works, so I'm just going to use AI. We got to get to the root cause, just like in health and wellness, the root cause to find the solution. Well, we have to get to the root cause. What limiting belief are you still holding on to that's holding you prisoner, captive, and not allowing you to think like the person you need to go where you're trying to go? If that makes sense.
No, I love it. I love it. Yeah. I think it's huge that we're talking grit as far as perseverance, as far as moving forward in life, but there's sometimes we actually have to take that grit and dig deeper into the past in order to discover what's holding us back from the grit moving forward as well. So I love how grit can go both directions
Oh
here. And
yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing here is I feel that men are very subject to ego. And you're talking about the gym is like when we're at the gym, it's like, oh yeah, we want to look the part, but then we don't have the integrity when we're right at the gym by ourselves. But what are we like behind closed doors? What are we doing when the people aren't watching us, when our family isn't watching us, when our kids aren't watching us, when the wife isn't watching us, when the boss isn't looking, watching us? What are we doing? Are we allowing that ego to just trick ourselves? Ego we can project to other people, but that ego can trick ourselves just as much. And so taking that grit the other direction of trying to break down the walls to correct certain wiring, so we can make, that disconnect between our heart and our mind. We can take time to use the grit to rewire ourselves in order to advance in the right direction, to be able to find that purpose, to be able to do the internal work, the transformation from the renewing of the mind, being able to do the inside approach, right? The whole thing about this podcast is doing the inside approach. It's inside, it's not
Yep.
outside. I mean, yes, we go to the gym and work hard, but are we doing those same disciplines in our mind, in our heart, with our emotions and our mindset and the grit that we're talking about, making these decisions to direct, to find our purpose or to chase after our purpose on a consistent basis. And so I really love how you just brought that all together right there. And so that's huge.
Well, yeah, I mean, when you think about it, like when you think about developing grit and working it like a muscle, putting in the reps, if you will, it's really again the decision to every single day complete the thing, follow through on the thing, stack those small wins over time to create proof to yourself that you are a person of your word, that you do see things through, that you are a starter and a finisher, so that you can build that over time, and that's what's going to help you develop the grit because at the end of the day, if you can't follow through on a simple task, like if you said you were going to walk the dog today and you don't do it, you're creating negative evidence, if you will, which is evidence in general, right? Because the brain is blind to the input, good or bad. But you're creating this negative evidence for yourself. Because it's like, well, I can't do this. I can't even walk the dog every day like I said I was going to do. Like, it's just a reality. So how can we set ourselves up for success by getting things done that we said we were going to get done, understanding that stacking those small wins over time is going to add grit points, if you will. Every time you complete something, every time you knock something out, every time you follow through, you get to stack these little points on the board, these grit points that are building you up and making you a grittier person so that in the future, when the obstacle comes, when the adversity arises, you're exactly who you need to be, equipped with the skill set, the mindset, the beliefs, and the actions to allow you to just like walk right through it instead of being blown out by it.
My brothers, this is what I get to listen to on a weekly basis. This is what I'm saying. Andrea is just phenomenal. She's done the work herself. It's not that she's just book smarts. I mean, look at the books behind her. She's read every single one of these books because she wanted to apply these principles into her life, not just turn around and communicate this to people. She walks the walk. And again, like I said, I've seen her on stage, I've seen her in person, I've seen her on Zooms, I see her on phone calls. I interact with this woman on a regular basis, and she is just as valuable in person as she is over these Zooms and these podcasts. And so, Andrea, how can our men follow you? What are, kind of tell them a little bit more about the Brewing Success. If you want your social media, how can these men find you to learn from you these leadership principles?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think if guys just continue to plug into this podcast and do the work, they're gonna get adequate level of growth. You're doing a phenomenal job. I'm so proud of you. But
Thank
you can
you.
find my podcast also maybe a female's perspective on some leadership topics at brewingsuccess.com. It's on all the platforms, Spotify, Apple, Google, Amazon. It's everywhere. And then on that website, you can also get connected to the weekly leadership newsletter and information on the mentorship community. So.
Phenomenal. Thank you again, Andrea. You have done so much for my life in such a short amount of time. I thank you so much for everything you've done for me. Thank you for your time being on this podcast today. It just means the world to me. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Super fun. I can't wait. Can't wait to see how this
Yeah,
moves.
we'll get it live here real soon. So, all
Beautiful.
right, be well, and let's take the inside approach. Thank you so much.